The silence of an empty house can be comforting, but what happens when that silence is shattered by the unknown? The darkness of the night can hide many secrets, and in this chilling video, we'll delve into 3 true stories of individuals who found themselves alone at home, face to face with the stuff of nightmares. When the comforting stillness of solitude morphs into an unsettling quiet, a silence so profound it's almost deafening. Picture yourself in a house, your house perhaps. It's ordinarily a safe haven, a sanctuary from the world outside, but now you're alone. The familiar becomes unfamiliar, the benign, sinister. Each tick of the clock echoes through empty halls. Each gust of wind against the window pane sends a shiver down your spine. The shadows in the corners seem to shift and move, playing tricks on your mind. Are they merely shadows or something more? The creaks in the floorboards sound suspiciously like footsteps, but who could they belong to? When the shadows in the corners start to move, reality can quickly shift into a terrifying nightmare. The darkness seems to come alive, and a strange, shapeless shadow appears in the protagonist's home, growing and moving, creating a sense of fear and uncertainty. We embark on our first tale with this eerie brush against the supernatural. Imagine the scene. An ordinary evening in an ordinary home disrupted by this extraordinary occurrence. Our protagonist alone notices this peculiar shadow. Not your typical silhouette cast by a lamp or a piece of furniture. This shadow is something else entirely. It undulates, creeps along the walls, making the room seem smaller, more oppressive. The air grows chill, the silence deepens. The only sound is the beating of a terrified heart, its rhythm growing faster with each passing second. As the shadow continues its ominous dance, logical thought gives way to a primal fear. The fear isn't just from the sight of the shadow, but from the uncertainty, the unknown. What could this shadow be? What could it possibly want? The questions whirl around, feeding the growing terror. The atmosphere is heavy with dread, thick with unease, and then, as suddenly as it began, it ceases. The shadow fades back into the darkness, leaving only the regular silhouettes behind. But the fear, the terror, they remain, the memory of the shadow etched into the mind. This chilling encounter is a stark reminder that we are never truly alone, not even in the safety of our own homes. After all, when the shadows start to move, we're left to question what's real, and what's a terrifying brush with the unknown. A house's creaks and groans are familiar sounds, but what happens when those creaks turn into footsteps drawing ever closer? The darkness of the night amplifies the sounds, turning the familiar into the terrifying. Our second tale of terror begins in a quaint suburban home left in the care of a teenager for the weekend. The parents, away on a trip, left the house to the trusted hands of their eldest child. The first night was uneventful, filled with movies, junk food, and the typical freedoms that come with temporary independence. As the second night fell, the familiar rhythm of the house began to change. The usual creaks and groans morphed into something far more sinister. Footsteps. They echoed through the hallways, a steady, haunting rhythm that chilled the air. The teenager, frozen in fear, tried to convince themselves it was just the house settling. But the footsteps continued, growing louder, drawing nearer. The house, once a haven of comfort and safety, became a maze of shadows and unknown sounds. The teenager, cloaked in fear, tried to rationalize the situation. Perhaps it was just the wind, or maybe the house was simply old. But no amount of reasoning could explain the clear, deliberate sound of footsteps on the wooden floorboards. The footsteps moved from the hallway, up the stairs, and towards the teenager's room. The door handle jiggled slightly, and then silence. A terrifying, heart-stopping silence. The teenager, breath held, waited for what felt like an eternity. The seconds stretched into minutes, the minutes into hours. With the break of dawn, the nightmare seemed to end. The footsteps had ceased, the house was silent once again. But the terror of that night remained, a chilling reminder of the unknown. When the footsteps ceased, the eerie silence returned, leaving the individual to wonder if they were ever truly alone. The echoes of fear still lingered, a haunting aftermath of a night filled with terror. The teenager was left to question the safety of their own home and to wonder about the true nature of the sounds that filled the empty house. Was it just the house settling, or was there something more sinister at play? The answer, perhaps, is best left unknown. An empty house can turn into a stage for your worst fears, like seeing a face staring back at you from a window. The darkness outside makes the face even more eerie and terrifying. We proceed to our third tale of terror that takes us into the heart of a quiet neighborhood where tranquility is about to be shattered by an uninvited guest. It was a typical evening, the kind where the world outside seems to vanish into the night's darkness. Yet, as the moments passed, a sense of unease began to seep in. Envision sitting alone in your living room, the soft illumination from the television painting dramatic shadows on the walls. Suddenly, in your peripheral view, you catch a glimpse of something outside the window. You turn to look, and there, mirroring your gaze, is a face. A face that has no business being there. A face that sends a spine-chilling coldness coursing through you. The shock of this sight hits like a lightning bolt, leaving you paralyzed and your heart hammering like a drum. You blink, hoping it's a trick of the light, a figment of your overactive imagination. But when your eyes reopen, the face persists, its eyes drilling into yours, its expression inscrutable. An instant of sheer horror elongates into an eternity as you grapple with the reality of what you're witnessing. The face is unnervingly close, pressed against the glass, its breath misting up the window. But who could this person be? Why have they chosen to peer into your home? The questions whip around your mind, the answers remain out of reach. With each ticking second, the dread intensifies, the house's silence amplifying your hammering heart. You're alone, trapped in a moment of raw fear, uncertain of your next move. Then, as abruptly as it had materialized, the face disappears, leaving nothing but a phantom-like trace of its presence. The window is barren again, the outside night enveloping it in darkness once more. When the face vanished, the individual was left with a residual fear, compelled to question the authenticity of their experience. These stories of home alone terror are not just tales, but true experiences that have left their mark on those who lived them. The darkness of the night and the unsettling silence can turn a tranquil home into a breeding ground for fear. Our journey through the creeping shadows, the haunting footsteps, and the eerie faces in the windows were not mere figments of imagination. They were bone-chilling realities that gripped the individuals involved, leaving them with an indelible sense of dread. As the silence was broken by sounds that had no business being there, the first story unfolded. The whispers of the wind, the rustling of the curtains, and the inexplicable creaks and groans of the house became a symphony of terror. Next, we delved into the story of the In the Corner. A benign, dark corner turned into a lurking menace as the shadows took on a life of their own. The line between the ordinary and the extraordinary blurred as the darkness morphed into a sinister figure. The shadow was no longer an absence of light, but a presence of something far more terrifying. The third story led us to the footsteps on the floorboards. A sound that could have been dismissed as the house settling became a harbinger of horror. The rhythmic tap, tap, tap grew louder, clearer, closer, turning the familiar home into a labyrinth of fear. The footsteps, echoing through the silence, were a chilling reminder that the person was not alone. Finally, the face in the window. Into the outside world became a window into the uncanny. The face pressed against the glass was a jarring invasion of privacy and safety. The eyes that stared from the other side of the window were not just another pair of eyes. They were the eyes of an uninvited presence, a chilling testament to the vulnerability of being home alone. These stories, these experiences, are a grim reminder of the thin veil that separates the ordinary from the extraordinary, the known from the unknown, the safe from the unsafe. They underscore the chilling truth that even in the safety of our homes, we may not be as alone as we think. They are a testament to the fact that terror can strike when we least expect it, in the places we feel safest. The chilling details of these stories, the lingering fear they left behind, are not just elements of a horror narrative. They are stark reminders of the reality of these encounters, intensifying their impact and making us question our perceived safety. Remember, when you think you're alone in the safety of your own home, you might want to think again. Because when the silence is shattered, you might find yourself face to face with the stuff of nightmares.